Christmas, a time of joy, of giving, of goodwill towards mankind. At least that's how it should be. But in December 1990, in a remote cabin in Oakley, Utah, disturbing events were set in motion. Just 3 days before Christmas, a pair of escaped parolees broke into the cabin, turning a place of festive celebration into a nightmarish crime scene. The Tiede family, Rolf Tiede, his wife Kay, their 2 daughters Tricia and Linnea, and Kay's mother Beth Potts, loved spending the Christmas season at their cabin in the Utah mountains. The rustic A-frame cabin stood isolated in deep snow, accessible only by foot or snowmobile, making it an idyllic retreat for the family, but also an isolated death trap. 2 men named Von Lester Taylor and Edward Stephen Deli walked away from a halfway house in Salt Lake City and headed into the mountains. Both were parolees with criminal records. Taylor had already served time for aggravated burglary, and Deli had served time for robbery and drug charges. The pair stumbled upon the Tiede's unoccupied cabin, and, sensing an opportunity to burglarize an easy target, they broke in. Inside, they made themselves at home, eating food and searching for valuables. They quickly found Christmas gifts under the tree. Using the family's video camcorder, Taylor began to film Deli unwrapping the presents.
I don't know. Okay. I don't think I got all of this.
You got a light flashing on the front of that.
I don't know.
Find out.
How am I supposed to find out?
For unknown reasons, the 2 parolees changed their minds. They weren't going to just steal and bail like they planned. They were going to relax in the comfort of the cabin and wait for the owners to return. The precise reason for this change remains uncertain, but Taylor phoned a friend from the cabin and said he was going to shoot some people, suggesting a violent intent from the very beginning. It's also possible they stayed expecting the family to bring more valuables and an escape vehicle. As afternoon approached, Kay, her mother Beth, and Linnea arrived at the cabin, returning from a shopping trip to Salt Lake City. The women were immediately ambushed by the 2 intruders. At gunpoint, the men forced the women into the living room. None of them resisted. Apparently unprovoked, Von Taylor shot 49-year-old Kay and then her mother Beth multiple times before killing them both. Beth Potts, who could not even see her attacker, died on the floor alongside her daughter. Linnea was the only one spared. For the next 2 agonizing hours, Linnea remained bound in terror, trapped in the cabin with the bodies of her mother and her grandmother just feet away. Deli told Linnea, "You've seen us. Now we have to either kill you or take you with us." During this time, Taylor and Deli ransacked the house for more valuables and waited for the rest of the family to arrive. Later that afternoon, Rolf and his younger daughter Tricia finally reached the cabin and walked straight into the massacre. Taylor and Deli ambushed them with guns, herding Rolf and Tricia into the house. The men demanded money, and Rolf handed over about $100 in cash and a watch. Taylor ordered Deli to shoot Rolf. Deli aimed his gun, but wouldn't pull the trigger, so Deli shot Rolf in the face instead. Believing Rolf to be dead or dying, the intruders doused him with gasoline and set him on fire. They also set fire to other parts of the cabin, upstairs in the garage, hoping to burn any evidence of their crimes. The cozy holiday cabin had now become an inferno of blood and flame, a scene later described as like a war zone by investigators. After ransacking what they could, the two criminals fled the cabin with their two hostages. Despite being shot and set on fire, Rolf miraculously survived. The gunshot to the head had not killed him, and he pretended to be dead during the assault to avoid another execution attempt. It hit me in the face and knocked me down. I froze, fearing I would be shot again if the assailants thought I was still alive. Suffering severe burns and injuries, Rolf crawled to a bathroom and managed to climb into the shower to extinguish the flames on his burning clothes and flesh. This quick thinking saved his life. Despite feeling unimaginable pain, Rolf's only thought was to save his kidnapped daughters. He stumbled back outside into the snow, the cabin burning behind him, determined to pursue the attackers and rescue his girls. Finally, I realized the fire was more than I could handle. I then hopped on a snowmobile and rode down the hill. Down the mountain, the two killers forced Linnea and Tricia onto the family snowmobiles. Each sister was made to drive with a gunman clinging behind them. Incredibly, Rolf's brother, Randy, who lived nearby, happened to be waiting at the property's gated entry down the hill. As the snowmobiles raced past, Randy waved. When he received no warm response, he could tell something was wrong. Not far behind, Randy then saw a third snowmobile emerging from the trees. It was Rolf, badly hurt but alive, in furious pursuit of the killers. Randy immediately called the Summit County Sheriff for help and rushed to assist his brother by taking him to a nearby hospital. Public units were quick to respond, covering the mountain area in an attempt to snare the killers. Reaching the base of the mountain, the parolees turned fugitives forced the Tiede sisters into the family's Ford 4x4. They then sped off, believing they were going to make a clean getaway. But by that point, law enforcement was in pursuit. A high-speed chase occurred through the snowy canyon roads, during which the suspects managed to avoid a police roadblock. The chase finally ended when Taylor and Deli crashed the SUV, spinning off the road. Officers swarmed in, apprehended both men, and rescued the two sisters from their captors unharmed, at least physically. The brutal crimes at the cabin led to swift and dramatic legal consequences for both Von Lester Taylor and Edward Stephen Deli. Both men were charged with a litany of felonies, including first-degree murder, attempted murder, arson, aggravated robbery, and aggravated kidnapping. Taylor, the apparent ringleader, opted to plead guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder, rather than stand trial. He confessed to killing Beth Potts and Kay Tiede, as well as shooting Rolf and burning down the cabin, showing little remorse. In May 1991, a Utah jury unanimously sentenced Taylor to death for the 2 murders, a verdict welcomed by the victim's grieving family. Taylor was sent to death row at Utah State Prison, where he remains to this day, awaiting execution. Edward Deli, by contrast, maintained that he never fired a shot and pleaded not guilty, forcing a jury trial. Prosecutors argued that even if Deli hadn't pulled the trigger, he was equally culpable of an active participant in the cabin invasion and a willing participant in the murders. Nonetheless, when it came time to decide Deli's fate, the jury could not reach a unanimous decision on the capital murder charge. 11 jurors believed Deli was guilty of first-degree murder, but 1 lone holdout refused to convict him of the most serious charge, citing reasonable doubt about who actually fired the fatal shots. To avoid a hung jury and mistrial, the panel compromised by finding Deli guilty of second-degree murder instead. This verdict spared Deli from the death penalty. Linnea openly cried in court and later said she felt the jury's decision was an injustice. Edward Deli received second-degree murder instead of first-degree due to 1 jury member deciding to hold out I felt like the courts did an injustice to our family. I felt like he deserved to be on death row as well, just like Taylor. Deli murdered. Taylor murdered. Regardless of Deli's sentence, both Lanier and Tricia have vowed to be there when Taylor is executed. In June 1991, 3rd District Judge Frank Knoll sentenced Deli to a term of life in prison. His earliest possible parole date would have been around 2053. However, Utah's Board of Pardons later decided that Deli should not ever be eligible for parole, given the heinous nature of the crime. Edward Deli will spend the rest of his life behind bars. Taylor has continued to appeal his death sentence over the decades, even arguing in recent years that new ballistic evidence shows Deli fired the fatal shots. However, his argument is irrelevant. Under Utah law, an accomplice to murder is considered just as guilty as the one who actually pulled the trigger. In 2021, a federal appeals court reaffirmed that point and put Taylor back on death row after a brief overturning of his conviction. As of 2025, Von Taylor remains on death row in Utah, awaiting a further execution date once his final appeals are exhausted. Rolf Tiede's incredible resilience became a beacon of hope in the aftermath of the nightmare. Despite being gravely wounded, Rolf survived his injuries and lived many years. In an act of defiance, he later rebuilt the burned-out cabin, his daughters describing it as even better than before. The family continues to use the cabin to this day. Rolf Tiede passed away in 2008, nearly 18 years after the attack. His legacy is one of courage and devotion, a father who quite literally walked through fire to protect his family.